Okay, with us today, we have another professional for our Career Pathways interview. We have Israel Feliciano. He's going to talk to us about his journey in the trades and how it's been and successes. And I will let him go ahead if you want to start with telling us what it is that you do.
I'm a journeyman sheet metal worker, also known as HVAC technician. There's a broad spectrum of my trade. Kind of goes on your niches or your interests. You can kind of pick your own path.
Okay.
We do all sorts of different stuff: welding, roof work, furnaces in houses, hospitals, strip malls. Kind of, there's a lot of sheet metal in the world that you never think would be related to sheet metal, but
Yeah. How long have you been in this career?
going on 8 years now.
8 years. Okay. And now you're specifically doing, like you said, there's a lot of different areas in which you can do your work. What specifically do you do?
I do commercial work, specifically in hospitals. I've been in-house for Children's Hospital for about 4 years now.
Okay.
But I have also done banks, just about every Chase Bank, every US Bank, BMO Bank across Wisconsin. I've done lots of little just office buildings and one-day jobs and two-day jobs, and I've been on jobs that they build out of the ground, brand new construction.
Okay.
The new towers that you see going up in the city, we do that kind of stuff, all the HVAC in there.
Okay.
It's a lot.
So how did you get started with this career?
I got a call one day and asked if I was interested in a sheet metal career, which I had never heard of, and gave it a shot, like every other 19-year-old kid who is unsure in their life, and you just try, I guess. And
Did you always know that you wanted to maybe do something with your hands? Is that
I never wanted to be a tradesman.
really?
I went to school to be an accountant,
Okay.
and I was not interested the entire schooling, and I got an offer to try doing a labor job, and I love it now.
Okay. So what is it, if you don't mind my asking, what about accounting did you not like? Like what?
School.
School
Was never for me. I just did it. I was good at it. I just never enjoyed the schooling and the computer side of it, and it was very dull.
Yeah. Kind of going off track a little bit then, did you feel like you had a certain kind of pressure on you to go to school after high school? Is that kind of why you went ahead even though you didn't like school?
I would say this day and age, everyone's pressured into school.
Yeah.
You kind of feel it's your only true option to make it in life. And I can tell you for sure there's a lot more money elsewhere. You just have to find what you like.
Right.
So what about your personality kind of fit into what you do now?
I am a very mechanically inclined person, so the job does work for me. I mean, there's some people who don't like wrenching on things or don't like figuring how things work out. I have always liked doing that, so this was a perfect position for me. But accounting also, I like numbers, so that worked too, but just the school side of it was not it, and this seems to fit pretty well.
You said someone called you and said, hey, do you want to try this job? Why do you think that they chose you?
I think, for one, because I was one of the only young people in their social network, and a lot of younger people they're trying to push to get into these trades, which is a very low number right now.
Right.
I know the average age that people get into trades is about 26 years old. I was surprised when I found that number out, but it is usually a career people don't jump into right away because it's always a back burner for everyone. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure why I got the call, but
you got it.
But it worked.
Obviously something about you or what it is that you do, your personality, I'm thinking too, that
I've always been kind of, in my friend group, the guy that fixes or figures things out. So I think that helped that my name was there to be had. And
right.
I was very open about not liking college. drop out and
Yeah.
have nothing, but
You talk about not liking school. Is there anything in this, the traits of it, what did you have to do to get here? Like certification, schooling, like what did that
so
entail?
there is schooling with
Okay.
an apprenticeship. You are paid to go to school.
Okay,
It is not your English and math and your textbook type work. It's all work related learning,
mhm,
which makes it a little more interesting, so you're not dull every day. It does help that you're getting paid to be there.
right.
Um,
And who did you do it through? Like what program?
Local 18 is the sheet metal union.
Okay,
I'm a union employee,
okay,
so we work and train directly through the union, and then they put you with employers, and so that's one nice perk, that you're not just worried about your one employer making everything happen for you.
mhm,
You have a union backing,
okay,
so even if something goes wrong with that employer, you still have the union to put you in more employment, or you never lose your training for that matter.
right. So maybe it's a little naive of me. Okay, so let's just say somebody wants to get into your industry, they just can call up the local union and say, hey, I wanna get an apprenticeship?
I would like to join the union for one,
Okay,
and then to get an apprenticeship, you have to take a ACT in the last, I wanna say, 5 years,
mhm,
or you take an AccuPlacer at MATC,
mhm,
and then there's score requirements based on that, which I have in this information here.
okay,
And then from there, they grant you in the union as a sheet metal worker, and then they put your name on a list for all the potential employers that are contracted with them, which is, I wanna say like 300 to 400,
mhm,
and then whoever's needing an apprentice, your name gets submitted to them and they take you on and you go from there.
okay. Have you taken on an apprentice?
I obviously went through an entire
Right.
apprenticeship, and the companies take the apprentices. You don't.
Or does anybody work under you? I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Like, yeah, okay.
Yes.
You have apprentices working under you, or
So
with
I am
you, or however you wanna
what
term
they
that.
consider a foreman, looking over a job site,
Okay,
and then I have a crew of 4 guys. So we have some guys who are journeymen who went through their apprenticeship already. They're officially completed and certified by the state,
mhm,
and then we have guys in training that we consider apprentices.
mhm,
And there's 2 of them with me right now. One is in his 5th year. An apprenticeship is 5 years. I don't think I
Mhm.
mentioned that. So
Oh.
he's in his 5th year, and we have another guy who's in his 2nd year,
mhm,
and kind of usually give them the tasks based on their experience, obviously.
mhm. Okay,
A lot of on-the-job training.
mhm. Well, 5 years, that's a long time. Now, well, I'm gonna get to the numbers later, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking like, you're an apprentice, you start probably at a certain rate as an apprentice. Do you get raises on an apprentice, or do you have to wait until you finish it?
You get, being in the union, there's everything is a standard rate, so all
Mhm.
apprentices make the same dollar amount.
Mhm,
And then every year of your apprenticeship, it's based on hours worked. You
Okay.
get a raise, and it's a percentage of a journeyman.
okay,
And I don't know the math on it, but it's, every year it's tiered up and up and up.
okay,
And then you hit your journeyman, and again, that's the same flat rate all journeymen make,
okay,
a union negotiated rate.
okay, okay.
So were there any kind of barriers that you faced in getting to where you are now? Any hurdles that you had to jump over?
Getting up every morning and putting your 8 hours of hard work in. Some days you're outside. I've been fortunate the last 4 that I work indoors, but I mean, I've worked out in the rain, you work in the snow, you work in the mud. There can be some rough days that are,
Do you get to choose?
you do not get to choose.
Okay,
You get told where you're working, and
so how did you end up 5 years at like the hospital? Like was it just like one big project, or
So-
how did that work?
I work kind of on the service side of the industry. I'm kind of a hybrid role. I do construction and service, and there's just a lot of service needs in a hospital. So there's just one thing after another coming up, and, you know, there might be 3 projects going on that are a year long that overlap each other. So there just there's always enough work to just keep guys busy, one thing every day.
So, I'm not quite sure what service is considered. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so anything, your day by day things that break, or,
Oh, okay.
you know, we get a room that the heat's not working, so we gotta go figure out why it's not working and what parts needed to fix it, and sometimes it's something simple that just, something came loose, you screw it back together and you're good, and sometimes it's a big deal, you know, you gotta order parts and close rooms down or remodel to make it work right, or there's a lot of remodel work in hospitals, so that's another thing that you're continually adding to your day.
So, like, your day now, like, if you, and you kind of give an idea, like, tomorrow when you go into work, like, what are you doing from when you get there to when you finish?
A lot of paperwork.
Oh, okay, okay.
With hospital work comes paperwork, because everyone needs their I's dotted and their T's crossed, so my hands are getting more and more soft as I get further in my career.
Yeah.
Just because there's less tool working, but your average day would be installing a duct run, like, you know, for your heat or your air conditioning. So you have to get it through the walls and to whatever locations are needed from your blueprints, which is all stuff you learn during your apprenticeship in school and how to read them, and
Yeah.
so you'd be continually building the HVAC system. Is a normal day of a sheet metal worker.
Okay, okay. So now, if somebody wasn't commercial, like, what would their day look like? Or is that kind of a broad question?
A little bit, but a commercial day is usually a larger scale of ductwork, because
Okay.
a commercial building needs more air.
Yep.
So you're doing essentially still building the HVAC system, just on a larger scale. You know, you might be working with something 5 feet wide rather than something 10 inches wide that's in your basement. And a little more freedoms to work in terms of, you know, you're not jammed in like a basement or a closet or something doing your work. You're on big lifts, or just an big open job site, completely gutted, that you can do your job with bigger equipment, heavier equipment.
Is it risky? Like the commercial stuff, would you say it's a little bit more risky, the work that you're doing?
I would say all construction work can be risky.
Yeah.
You have to be diligent about being safe and doing things the right way, so you're not risking yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Is there like a training that you guys have to go through with that? Is that part of any
We are
training?
regulated by OSHA,
Okay.
so you have to do periodic OSHA training. There's also different tasks that jobs require you to train specialty for,
Okay.
so things stay safe. I mean, you could be in a confined space where you need extra training for that, or maybe you're around some electrical hazards that you need some extra kind of training for. But yeah, every day is diligent about keeping yourself safe and the guys around you, so.
So have you've done residential work before?
I have done some residential work.
Do you have a preference?
I do have a preference, it's commercial.
Okay.
Residential work is usually just a little dirtier and more crammed spaces. People tend to not care much about their mechanicals in their house. So you tend to have a lot more outdated things, because people only like to fix things when they're broken, rather than keep them up to date, where, you know, like my example, Children's Hospital, things are being replaced for the sake of replacing them, so they stay new and working properly, rather than waiting till they break.
Right.
So that is nicer, it's usually cleaner.
Okay. What would you say, well, let me ask, okay, is there anything, you said that you started school, didn't like it, and, you know, happened to get into this. Is there anything, any anything along your path that you would have done different?
Started even earlier than I did.
Yeah, okay.
I started at 20 years old. I wish I would have started right out of high school, which I was close, but it would have progressed my raises and things like that even faster than it did, and that would probably be the only thing I would change.
Yeah. Did you, don't mind my asking, waste money on your schooling then too? Did you, or?
I went to school under some federal grants and
Oh,
such,
okay.
so I didn't pay a lot of out of pocket for school,
Okay,
but it still was money spent that I
absolutely.
didn't need to spend. I mean, books are still not cheap no matter
Oh, yeah.
what.
Have you recruited anybody else into this field?
I have a couple of friends from high school, a couple of other just random people that I've met. I try to get as many people as I can. I tell them it helps you set you up for a nice lifestyle, and
Yeah.
you just have to be willing to put in the hours and the work.
Would you say that's the hardest part? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hardest part of the job is doing the work.
Yeah. I guess yeah.
But
makes sense.
yeah, I mean,
Are there like any skills that you're kind of surprised that you had to learn on the job that they didn't necessarily teach you? Like, I don't know if you have to like work with people, like, well, work with like a lot of people, or like just communicating with someone outside of like maybe your boss, like if you're working at the hospital and maybe.
yes, there's a lot of things you never expect to really do. Like, first of all, learn the little nicks of the trade that things you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I never would have even thought to do that myself. That experience helps you learn, or guys that are experienced show you. And then on the communication side, I mean, yeah, you go into construction thinking I'm just going to do my job, and then you get into certain scenarios where I sit in meetings with people that are from the hospital that remotely do not understand what we're doing, but they need to know because it affects their daily work, and so we have to kind of try to connect, hospital side of it to construction side and make it safe and efficient for everyone involved, which sometimes a little hard because, right, construction guys want to do construction, and people from the hospital want to do things the medical way, and we always have to find the right line for every scenario.
Could you, and I see you have a bunch of stuff in front of you, would you mind kind of maybe just briefly explain what you have in front of you there?
Sure. This is just the information on how to get in the union, how to get in contact with the apprenticeship board, and your requirements for your ATC score or your METC AccuPlacer. We also have tutoring available in the union. So if you feel your skills are not there and academically to get in, or I've heard of guys that are 40 years old starting in the trades, and you don't remember the math from high school. So they go take some tutoring and get a refresher, and then go take the tests and then pass it. Or just, maybe you're just unsure of something you might want to take a course on, or so there's all that. This is just a wage sheet of what your apprentices make coming in the door and what you'll make as a journeyman.
Nice.
And then it has its yearly breakdown. They also offer a position called a pre-apprentice. That is almost like your seasonal worker, I guess you'd call it. And that's actually what I started in the trade as. And it's a way to give the employer and the employee kind of a sense of, like, let's feel everything out. It's almost a probationary period is the best way to put it.
Okay.
So then you don't have to go through all the steps of becoming an apprentice and signing up for school and then realizing, I really do not like this job. You can just sign up, do this job. You have to go through your proper paperwork, but just do the job, see if you like it, and then move into your career.
Do a lot of people start that way?
I would say about half.
Okay.
Sometimes the last few years, the industry has been so busy that there's not really a need for temp workers or people trying it out. You kind of come in and they say, you want to become an apprentice right away? And most people just agree because it's a higher rate or a higher wage.
Yeah.
And then you're automatically chugging along into your career rather than just kind of in the trial waters. But like when I signed up, I took the trial job just because I was so unsure that I'd never heard of it, and I'd rather try it out and
See if you like it.
and quit and go back to school than be all the way into it.
Would that be your advice for someone who wasn't sure to start that way?
If you're unsure, I would highly recommend taking the pre-apprentice job and just feeling it out. And then you don't feel trapped into the job.
Right.
Where do you kind of see yourself in like 5-10 years? Like, are you thinking of like a higher leadership role, or?
Personally, I'm pretty comfortable what I'm doing now. Higher leadership than me becomes like what they call the superintendent, so the supervisor of all people who look over job sites. And I'd rather not do that, because then you become more of an office type, and at least I still get to work sometimes,
Yeah.
rather than only office work. Yeah, it becomes a little too management for my personal life, but there's not a lot of tiers in construction. You're an apprentice, and obviously your years of that, usually seniority kind of plays a role in construction to a certain degree. And then you become a journeyman, which you're kind of just in the mix of everyone. And then you can be promoted to a foreman or a sub-foreman, kind of his right-hand man to help daily operations. And then above that, you'd be a superintendent, which oversees kind of everyone. And then that's officially when you're more office orientated. And other than that, there's kind of keep it simple. You're either a worker or an office guy. And I like to be a worker.
It's nice to have a little bit of both, though.
Yes, so, and I get a little bit of both, which is nice, but at least I like it. But I know I have guys on my crew even who want nothing to do with being a management type role and making decisions. They want to have 8 hours of work to do and finish their 8 hours of work and go home, which is a nice role too.
Would you say there's an opportunity to also like do some, side jobs and such in this field?
There are. It's somewhat of a bit of a niche. You have to kind of know a larger spectrum of your trade, because if you do, say, a side job, you're on your own. You're there fixing somebody's services without any team to help you answer questions, or everyone's a phone call away. But at work, there's always another hand willing to help you, or usually on a side job, you're sitting there alone and you have to make it happen.
Yeah. Is there any like restrictions with the union in doing that, or you're okay once you're kind of off the clock?
Side job wise, there's restrictions, because it's, your friends and family and such, that's kind of help as needed and such. It's when you start essentially making it a business, because then you're competing with not yourself, but with your fellow union members, because that's businesses that are doing that type of work. So if you're turning this into a daily operation, then they frown upon that because you're taking work from other employees.
I have a question, I'm not sure if this was asked already. Do you see a lot of women in the field?
It is about 95% men. We are getting women in the trades. It's been a big push for the last, I would say, 5 to 10 years. They're really trying to make an effort to show women that this is a thing that is open to everyone. And like right now, I can think of, at the company I work for, there's probably 4 women, which they're all fairly new to the company. And when I started 8 years ago, there was 0. I do know in construction that women are getting more involved on the office side of things, and I think over time it'll trickle across the board, but it is definitely open. They're looking for them. They're promoting them as much as they can. I know our union, and I don't know what other unions are involved, but they do like women in construction days, and they kind of go out to job fairs and promote, kind of try to directly to women. And I guess I can't speak to the numbers of how that's multiplying, but for sure in the last 8 years we've got at least 4 that do sheet metal. I know there are other women in other trades. I've met a couple, but it's just not a very appealing job, I guess. I think it's just not promoted enough.
Yeah.
Kind of along the same lines, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, especially because you don't run the union or anything, but do you also feel like there's, like, we serve a lot of people of color, a lot of young people. Do you feel like there's a push, or they're more of an audience, or the union's doing anything to really diversify the field also?
I know our union specifically is.
Okay.
I think that goes kind of back to what I said about not portraying it to women. I mean, is the same way we're not portraying it to like this inner cities, or I mean, most tradesmen you meet, everyone was related to somebody, or you know, my uncle or my dad or my so, and 50 years ago 99% of your tradesmen were white men. So I know our union is trying to reach out to like more high schools of across the board, but it's something that, you know, if you don't know anyone in it, you don't usually have as much interest.
Right.
And that, I think, is one game that doesn't help the numbers yet.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, part of the idea of us doing this too, is to really broaden the audience too,
Yeah.
and to our audience, like, broaden the field, right? What are some things they can do and want to do and could be successful in? And seeing people like them in the roles too,
Yes.
I think is really important.
And I know there are some programs that are starting to do that. I know we have a guy who works in our union hall whose job specifically is to go out and promote the union to job fairs and high schools and
Okay.
anyone who will listen.
Yeah. Okay. What would you say has been your biggest success in this career?
Moving up the ranks in terms of starting to manage people at a young age. Predominantly, you move up in the ranks just as you get older in construction, and I kind of have surpassed that point already, and I would say that's probably my biggest gold star of my job yet.
And any advice that you would give to anybody who's looking to get in this field?
Work hard and come with an open mind.
Okay.
The best thing you can do to learn is to listen. And there's a lot of information that a lot of people have when you're working, and the best thing you can do is learn from everyone around you on how to do things, and the better you learn how to do things, the better you'll be in your career.
Some good advice. I think that can go across the board to any career.
It can, but
Okay, any other final words?
no, hopefully we get some sheet metal workers.
Right, yeah. And you got some great pamphlets there, I see, and we'll definitely be utilizing those and showing those to the individuals that we have. And
This one here is just a general summary of
Okay.
all of these, and then these are just more detailed parts of the trade. When I
Okay.
mentioned there's lots of tunnels,
yeah,
these are your tunnels here.
okay. Well, great. Well, we appreciate you coming in and, you know, speaking to our young people about the trades and what you do in your journey, because I think it's always very helpful to hear somebody firsthand doing it, and again, seeing that they can do it too.
Awesome.
Israel, thank you.
Thank you.